All right, Brandon Muth here again. Done with this satellite info data art thing. In fact, just sent it to the printer. I'm going to print a 24 by 24 Giclée stretch wrapped canvas, and I'm going to be selling it in my shop. But this is where it ended up. I've been working on the design, finishing details of this for a few weeks now. Um, I kept thinking I had it, and then I'd sit on it for a couple days, and I'd come back, and it still felt lacking to me. Um, so I just kept tinkering until I came back to it, and it didn't feel lacking. So again, that's not a very step-by-step process. It's more of a feel, but that's what I did. So uh, you can see that this is the finished piece. So we've got all of the meat of the. Uh-oh, I think I'm freezing. Don't freeze. There we go. Can I zoom in? There we go. So we've got all of the meat of the satellites in here, which we previously had. I kept the elliptical orbit lines. I added some of these labels to kind of denote the distances, so Earth is right smack dab in the center. And I just went with a simple black circle. I tried to put a real Earth in there with like the continents and stuff, and you couldn't tell what it was, so it just was confusing. So I just went with Earth, big black dot. Then we've got the low Earth orbit in here, and then we've got the geostationary, roughly 35,000 kilometers, which are all these satellites in this ring. Then the medium Earth, which is kind of this middle ring, and then if we zoom out, there's the 100-kilometer orbit. Most of the detail was spent getting the space, the background, the spacescape, kind of the space scene to feel cool. That was where most of the detail was spent. And what I ended up having here was there are there's 6 images of different textures and colors and brushes and things that I kind of layered together and played with until I finally got the background of this to feel right to me. The other thing I had to spend a lot of time on was how much text did I want to put on here. So the Aces tennis graphic, there's a key that kind of shows you what each shape represents, and there's a lot of text. And I did the same thing on this, and it just didn't feel right. It just felt really cluttered, and it took away from the space feel, the wide openness. So originally this was going to be an 18 by 24, and I took it out to a 24 by 24 because I think the square, the dimensions of the square just help it. And I ended up eliminating most of the text, just relying on the main satellite visual here with these distance kind of denoters. And then what I did here is I separated each one of the layers of satellites. So there's 7 layers of satellites that make up this main data art in the center, and I separated them and grouped them by their launch dates. So there's 7 of them that were launched between 74 and 89, 23 of them that were launched between 90 and 94, etc. And then I put those on separate layers just to kind of give you a feel of, how the satellites that are in orbit, how they're kind of dispersed by age. And then I broke down the percentages. And then the only text that I did was this real simple text down here. It's pretty small, and on the final printed piece it's going to not be that prominent, but it just references the Union of Concerned Scientists, which is where I got the database from. And that the data art above represents all the objects that were in orbit December 31st, 2015. And then I just make a note that when layered on top of each other, these 7 satellite clusters grouped by launch years create the primary visualization you see above. Each satellite was painstakingly and meticulously handpicked by data artist Brandon Muth without the assistance of any automated visualization software. So to me, that's I put that in there because it was painstaking and it was meticulous. And there's so much automated stuff between graphics and Tableau and all these things that I wanted to note that I did not do this with automated stuff, but I actually placed every single of the 1,304 dots. So there you have it. I will be selling canvases of this in my shop. If you're interested, you can, I'm sure, Google me and find out. But that kind of wraps up the process of how I go through creating data art. And like I said, the actual visual nature of it is just a very organic kind of internal feeling that I get when I look at the piece. So there are some logical kind of replicable steps you can take, but then when it comes down to the finished look, it's just an internal feel. And today, after probably tinkering with it for like the 7th time, I kind of said, hey, I think it doesn't need any more tinkering. So, and this border you see here, this like 1-inch border, that's for the printer, for the wrapped canvas. So that's actually going to get wrapped around the sides of the frame. So that's what that is. I think that's it. Hope you guys, whoever's watched this, has enjoyed the process. Hopefully you learned some things, got some insight, and inspired you to do some things. The other cool thing, lastly, that I'm very, very glad I did this one is because the next one that I'm working on, I'm doing a thing that only has about 50 data points, and it feels so easy to me. So I'm glad I tackled this one, because wrestling with 1,304 data points was really difficult. And so going back to something of like 50 data points, I was working on it last night, and it was like, this is the easiest thing in the world. So don't be afraid to push yourself with something that's maybe a little daunting and a little more challenging, because when you do come back to more manageable things, it makes it feel quite a bit easier. Have a good day.